Alright, I just uploaded a new batch of interactive capabilities as well as a bunch of new styles for the OS4 library to add to Phase 4. As I get them done, I'm just going to add large batches of new style capabilities, new interactive capabilities, new editing options. The Blade Builder has a bunch of new selections in the dropdowns. There's also a bunch of new base styles. So there's simply too much to list, and I actually lose track. So every time you check out the library, be sure to look through everything, look through all the drop-down options, read through all the help menus, because I'm just adding more and more. So we're moving way past, millions of combinations into that ludicrous, almost plaid, um, hopefully you guys get that reference, capabilities just with what's going to be possible. So these are just kind of a couple quick samples, but there's so many options I can't list them all. So I've added several new interactive capabilities. I've also added force toggle options. What force toggle is on those interactive capabilities in the Blade Builder, it just means you can use the force effect to either enable or disable the interactive capability. This gives you a little more flexibility if you want to make it kind of a feature that you turn on or off, or that's enabled through the force, you can do that. But I've got several new interactive capabilities in addition to what was released with the initial launch of Phase 4. I've also added a bunch of new styles. I did some more generic rotoscopes. So the original rotoscopes, there was hyper responsive as well as base, and they were based more on the trilogy films. But there's some playroom in there. So basically what I've done is I've done a couple generic versions. So there's a subtle one, a light one, a subdued, an erratic, a few other options. There's also the new power wave and the power ripple options. It's just to give you more style options that you can mix and match, particularly in the Blade Builder, but then also when you go into doing your color modifiers, your style modifiers, just more and more and more is really how to explain it, capabilities for you to come up with whatever you want in terms of what styles you're going to show on your lightsaber. So this is going to be kind of a small sample because there's so much that's been added. But this first one here, this one I'm calling an idle blade corruption. And the idea is if your blade is sitting idle, it's being corrupted by some force. Now, this you can pick and choose any color, any mix and match of styles you want. But this one here is going to start out in a green to blue gradient with a very subtle audio rotoscope. But then it's going to be, if the blade stays idle, it's going to be overtaken by a intense red power ripple as if it was being corrupted, by the dark side. And the only way to fight off that corruption is to keep your blade moving. That's where the idle corruption comes in, is when your blade is idle, it's being corrupted. As long as you move it, it doesn't. So I'll ignite it. So as long as the blade is moving, I have my green to blue gradient, but as it slows down, it's going to start to get corrupted. And that corruption can be stopped anytime by just swinging my blade around. Now, it's not just small movements. It does have to actually be swings. And as long as you keep it swinging, you can fight off that corruption. If I ever slow down or stop, it's going to overtake it. And again, you don't have to use the extremes. So I purposely have it with the red overtake just because it really stands out on camera. But it can be subtle changes. You can have it do a really subtle change even just within you. You can have it do just a change within the effect. And it just gives you even more life to your blade styles. And then as soon as you start moving it, it goes and resets itself back to where it was originally. And then you can also have it so that the corruption overtakes halfway, and then you keep resetting it. So the idea is to keep your blade active so you can fight off the corruption. And you can kind of mix and match and do whatever you want with it, but that's one of the new interactive capabilities. And there's several options to this one. But so then we've also got, so that's the idle blade corruption. And now this one's a little different. This is going to be a swing corruption. So this one will corrupt as I swing it, and then when I stop swinging, it'll actually reset itself. So this is kind of the inverse of that. So this is just kind of a really, I think this is the subtle rotoscope. So it's got a very subtle movement to it. So it's not quite static, although particularly in person, you have to really look to see the movement. This was just to give some new options, but this is a new rotoscope capability. But now this one, as I swing it, it's going to pick up a gradient that has more activity on it. But then if I stop swinging, it's actually going to overtake back down. And the length of time that the corruption lasts and takes over is based on the acceleration of your swings. And you can build it up as high as you want. So it's actually going up. Now these styles are close to each other, so there's a movement up and then a movement down based on how much I've picked up. So this one only moved up to here. But it's not a solid color. It is actually a gradient to get applied. So I have a base color that's solid, but I can apply a gradient so that the green actually only, no matter what, only goes up that way, and then it'll start overtaking into a blue up top. Um, but that's going to be the swing corruption. So that one's based on if you keep moving it, you get the corruption. So it's the opposite of the idle blade corruption. But just gives you, again, more and more options to build out your styles. And then this is another blade corruption. So this one I'm using a slow flame as the corruption on a kind of a gold. This actually, there's a color rotation on the base color. But this one, this idle blade corruption, the only way to clear it is with a clash or lockup. So if I clear, I reset my blade. If I clash, I get to reset my blade. But this corruption is going to always try to take over my style. And again, it's going to keep doing it. Now, with this one, if you keep your blade moving, you can slow down that corruption, but it's still going to take over. And then when you finally stop moving, it'll actually take over faster. So this one's another, this is a little bit of a change on the idle blade corruption, in that this one stays corrupt even when you move it. The only way to clear it is a clash or a lockup, or if you obviously change presets. So these are just a few samples. There is actually no joke, I have hundreds more, probably in the thousands range of ideas for these interactive controls, because whatever you do one way, you can do the inverse of it, or you can change how you enable it, or what makes it happen, or how it triggers. It really is getting into the video game realm of controls with everything that's possible. So all these interactive style capabilities are going to keep coming as I'm able to build them and test them, and I am going to keep doing them in batches. So what will happen is, as I get stuff done and tested, I'll add it up to the site. I'll try to announce it. I actually realized, looking back, there's actually a bunch of new stuff that kind of slipped in between phase 3 and 4. So those are kind of like, I guess I'll call them Easter eggs for those of you who are actually looking for the stuff, because as I'm adding stuff to the library, sometimes I plan to do videos and I lose track of time and I don't do video. Sometimes I shoot the video, but then I actually forgot I did the video, and it's just sitting in the camera's memory, and by the time I get around to it, it's not worth putting up. So there's so much more on the library than what you've seen just in these videos, and the easiest way to do it is just go and play in the library. Look through all the drop downs, all of the question marks that you see. If you click on them, they're going to expand the menu that's going to explain what's in there and what it does and what it means. And then of course you've got the previewer, so you can actually build these styles, test them out, play with them. For those of you who haven't seen my live demos of the library is giving you a ton of information. It's allowing you to do all your effect controls, so you can do your blast, your clash, your lockup, lightning block, your melt. You can do swings. You can do you can set clash impact so that you know how hard the clash is, because all of this information is how the blades and styles are built out. So everything's reacting in real time to how you're moving the blade, how you're using it, what effect you're triggering. And we can take all of that information and apply it to these styles to create all of these crazy interactive ideas. And again, you can go totally crazy with rainbows and all this different gradients and inverted colors and color blending and rainbow blending and omnicolor, or you can go more subtle and you can still get a lot of really creative stuff, but stay in the more canon realm. So a lot of times people think that just because we can do the craziest amount of stuff, that means that, oh, it's not good at doing canon stuff. It can do anything you want. It's really limited to your imagination. And if you're somebody who wants to just have canon, I mean, if you go back and watch the films, particularly original trilogy, the color of the blade changes from scene to scene on for certain characters. You're able to go in and you can actually use the color shift, and you can use the color blend, and you can have it so that your blade is doing the same thing, where for a period of time it's one color and then it shifts into another shade over a period of time. Or you can apply the corruption, or you can apply the kinetic swing, or you can apply all these other interactive controls, so that depending on how you're using the saber, it's reacting with a subtle color change, or reacting with a different movement, or reacting with a different speed. It really is endless with what's possible in terms of styles. And you know, the goal with the library is to just make more and more of these features available to you, just with picking and choosing from some menus, building out your style, and loading it up. So I have so much more coming. It's going to be, again, as I get these batches done, I'm just going to launch them up. Sometimes I'll try to do announcements like this. Other times there's going to be stuff that just kind of sneaks its way in, and those will just be little Easter eggs for people to go and find. So a lot of stuff in there that I haven't announced, a lot of stuff in there that either didn't make it into videos or got kind of lost in the shuffle, but there's a ton of stuff in the library. So go and play with it. Have fun, come up and use your imagination, create, you know, whatever you want for your saber. So And it's going to just keep growing. I mean, the list is already crazy. It's going to go from crazy to ludicrous, and hopefully to the plaid. And hopefully some people get that reference. So check it out, and hope you enjoy.